We've learned to pay attention to small signals, the ones people overlook because they don't feel dramatic. A medication tray that never arrives. A clipboard left outside a door a little too long. In Audrey Kingsley's case, it was the space beside the bed. It stayed empty in a way that felt intentional. Audrey is the kind of woman who keeps things moving for everyone else. Even when she's breaking, she's usually the one smoothing it over. That's why what happened to her lands the way it does, quiet, then brutal. And then her memory takes over. I woke up to a steady beeping that didn't match my breathing. My mouth tasted like metal and dry cotton. I tried to swallow and my throat lit up like I'd swallowed sand. A nurse appeared near the IV pole, checking the monitor without looking at me at first. "You're awake," she murmured, like she didn't want to jinx it. "Good. How's your pain?" I tried to sit up. My body argued back. "Where's my family?" The words came out thin. My parents. My sister. The nurse's hands paused for half a second. Not long, just long enough. "I don't have any visitors listed," she replied, smoothing her tone. "You've been under for 5 days. We've kept you stable. 5 days. I stared at the chair in the corner. It was the kind that unfolded into a bed if someone loved you enough to suffer through the night. It was perfectly folded, unused. My phone was on the table, face down. When I flipped it over, the screen lit up with missed calls from work, voicemails from my supervisor, a couple texts from a coworker that stopped short of asking the obvious. Nothing from my mother, nothing from my father, nothing from Blair. A second person came in, not in scrubs, button-down shirt, hospital badge, a slim folder held like it weighed more than paper. "Ms. Kingsley," he began, voice practiced. "I'm with patient accounts. We need to review your coverage and immediate payment plan." "My coverage." I blinked. My grandmother set up a medical trust. He nodded once. Not comforted by that. "That fund hasn't been releasing payments this week," he said. "Your post-op therapy schedule is currently paused until we confirm a deposit." Paused. I tried to breathe through the heat rising in my chest. My hands shook as I unlocked my phone and pulled up the portal. The trust dashboard loaded slowly, like it was thinking about whether to hurt me. A balance appeared. It was smaller than it should have been. Much smaller. "There's no way," I whispered, scrolling, then scrolling faster. "This can't be right." The man kept his tone soft, which somehow made it worse. "I'm sorry," he replied. "We're not discussing discharge today, but we do need to determine next steps." My throat tightened. I hit call on my mother's name. Straight to voicemail. In the quiet that followed, the beeping didn't feel neutral anymore. We noticed the moment her eyes went from foggy to clear. Not panic, something colder, like a door closing. I stared at the empty chair again, then at the list of withdrawals I didn't recognize, and I realized something before anyone said it out loud. They weren't coming. If you're listening on Revenge Sins and this hits close, there's a place to leave your thoughts when the story ends. The nurse adjusted the IV with gentle hands. "Try to rest," she told me. "You're safe here." I didn't correct her. Not yet. The nurse came back with a paper cup of ice chips and set it on the tray without making eye contact. The man from billing stepped aside, giving me space that didn't feel generous so much as procedural. "I'll come back later today," he offered. "Once we hear from the administrator." "The administrator," I echoed, my voice flat. He nodded. "Whoever's authorized to release funds." After they left, the room went quiet again. Not peaceful, just hollow. I opened the trust portal a second time. Slower now. My hands were steadier than I expected. The numbers didn't change just because I wanted them to. The balance sat there, smaller than it should have been, like a bad joke someone forgot to take back. The trust wasn't something I touched. Ever. My grandmother had been clear about that. "This isn't spending money," she'd told me years ago, sliding the paperwork across a cafe table in Zurich. "This is for when your body needs help and you're too tired to argue." I remembered nodding. I remembered promising. I scrolled through the activity log. Dates lined up with the days I'd been unconscious. Withdrawals just under the thresholds I vaguely remembered from the orientation call years ago, split across different states, labeled carefully: wellness services, recovery support, medical coordination. It was neat. Too neat. I hit call on Blair's name. She answered on the second ring, breathless, like she'd been moving. "Audrey," she said. Warmth poured on thick. "You're awake. Thank God." I was just about to head out. "To where?" I asked. A pause. "Not long. Just enough. I've been running back and forth, handling things. The trust is almost empty." She exhaled. A practiced sound. "I knew you'd see that and freak out. I'm not freaking out. You always say that when you are." I closed my eyes. My chest felt tight, like I'd laughed too hard at something that wasn't funny. "What did you pay for?" I asked. "Don't do this from a hospital bed," she replied. "You're emotional. I'm asking you what you paid for." Another pause. Longer this time. "Recovery expenses add up," she said. "You don't know how expensive this stuff is, and you weren't exactly in a position to manage it. I wasn't awake. That's why Mom and Dad asked me to step in." She shot back. "They trust me. They trust you." I repeated. "Of course they do," Blair said. "They always have." We noticed how the silence stretched there, not angry, just heavy, like something had finally been placed on the table and no one wanted to touch it. "I need the fund released today," I said. They paused my therapy. She clicked her tongue. "You're being dramatic. Hospitals do that. I'll call them. Today." I said again. "Fine," she snapped. "I'll handle it. Like I've been doing." The line went dead. I stared at the phone for a few seconds before setting it back down. The chair in the corner was still empty. The ice chips had melted into water. If this story is hitting close, you can stay with us at Revenge Sins and leave your thoughts when it ends. I turned the screen back on and scrolled once more through the withdrawals, reading each line like it might blink and confess. It didn't, but something in me had already started to shift, slow and irreversible, like a joint that finally gave way after years of strain. My mother picked up on the third ring. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, relief spilling out fast. "We just heard you woke up. How are you feeling?" "Tired," I replied, and confused. "That's normal after anesthesia," she said quickly. "Your body's been through a lot. I need to talk about the trust." There was a small sound on her end, like a drawer closing. "Blair's taking care of all that. I know she told you that. She's been very on top of things." Mom continued, calling doctors, coordinating. "We didn't want to overwhelm you. I'm already overwhelmed." She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice had shifted into the careful tone she used when she thought she was calming me down. "You've always handled stress well," she said. "Even as a kid. Remember when you broke your arm and didn't cry? That was because no one came to the hospital," I said. Another pause. Longer this time. Your father's voice came on the line, steady and practical. "We trust Blair," he said. "She's good with details, and you've got enough to focus on right now." The hospital paused my therapy. "They do that," he replied. "It's administrative, temporary. They said the trust hasn't released funds in days." Silence. Then a soft sigh. "Blair wouldn't let that happen." Mom said, "She knows how serious this is." I stared at the ceiling tiles. One of them had a faint crack running through the corner, like someone had dropped something heavy years ago and never fixed it. "I need one of you here," I said. Dad cleared his throat. "Honey, we didn't want to crowd you. You've always preferred space when you're recovering." "That's not true." "Well," he said, backing up gently, "you've always seemed fine on your own." Fine. That word landed harder than anything else they'd said. We heard it too the moment that word settled in the room and stayed there. I'm not fine, I said quietly. I'm asking for help. Mom jumped in. You have help. Blair's handling everything. There it was again. The sentence they'd built a whole reality around. I need the fund released today, I said. Not later. Today. Dad's tone tightened, just a notch. We'll talk to her. When? Soon. He replied. You need rest. The call ended with reassurances that felt rehearsed. Love you. Call if you need anything. Blair will take care of it. I set the phone down and let my hand rest there longer than necessary, like it might buzz again if I stayed still. The nurse came in to check my vitals. She smiled, asked me to rate my pain. I gave her a number that felt manageable. After she left, I stared at the empty chair again. They weren't choosing Blair over me. Not consciously. They were choosing the version of me that never asked for anything, and that version wasn't strong enough to survive this. I was halfway through a cup of lukewarm broth when the door opened again. This time, it wasn't a nurse. Iris stepped in like she belonged there. Blazer folded over one arm, hair pulled back the way she wore it on days she meant business. She paused when she saw me propped up, pale, tubes still taped to my arm. You look terrible, she said gently. I mean that in a professional concern kind of way. I managed a weak smile. You always had a gift for comfort. She set her bag down and pulled the chair closer to the bed without asking. HR flagged your absence. You don't disappear for 5 days without answering emails. That's not you. I hesitated, then turned the screen toward her. The trust portal was still open. Numbers, dates, locations. Her eyes narrowed. That's not random. Everyone keeps telling me it is. She leaned in, pointing at one line. This withdrawal happened in Arizona. This one in Nevada. This one in Massachusetts. All within 3 days. Blair said recovery expenses add up. They do. Iris agreed. But they don't move like this. The door opened again. A man in a navy sweater followed Iris inside, carrying a slim laptop and a paper coffee cup with the lid half crushed. Sorry, he said quietly. Security downstairs wanted to know why I was bringing electronics onto a patient floor. Iris waved him in. Audrey, this is Samuel. He owes me favors. Samuel offered a small nod. I hear you've got a trust behaving badly. I handed him the phone. My fingers brushed his for a second. Cold hands. Mine or his? I wasn't sure. He scrolled slowly, then stopped. This is deliberate. How can you tell? I asked. Every withdrawal sits just below reporting thresholds. He replied. And they're spaced far enough apart to avoid automated flags. Whoever did this knew the system. My chest tightened. She said she was just helping. Samuel tilted the screen toward me. Helping doesn't require moving funds through multiple states. Helping doesn't reclassify personal expenses as medical support. What kind of expenses? Iris asked. He tapped a few lines. A deposit tied to a condominium development in Scottsdale. A retreat in Costa Rica billed as wellness recovery. Cosmetic procedures under stress management. I felt the room shift slightly, like my bed had been rolled without warning. She was buying a life, I said, while I was unconscious. Samuel closed the laptop halfway. She wasn't panicking. She was waiting. The words sat there between us, heavy and precise. We noticed how Audrey didn't cry then. She just stared, like something had finally lined up in her mind. I trusted her, I said. I trusted them to watch her. Iris reached for my hand, stopped just short, then rested it on the blanket instead. This isn't about trust. This is about access. Samuel nodded. And access means intent. A nurse knocked and peeked in. Iris shifted back. Smile polite. Just visiting. After the door closed, I looked at them both. If I push this, my parents will say I'm overreacting. They already are, Iris said quietly. And if I don't, I added, They'll keep letting her do it. Samuel folded the laptop shut. There's a pattern here. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. I leaned back against the pillows, feeling the ache in my side flare and fade. I don't want to fight my family, I said. Iris stood, picking up her bag. Then don't. Just stop covering for them. Samuel gave me a card, placing it gently on the tray. Call if you want documentation, not accusations, just facts. After they left, the room felt smaller, not emptier, sharper. I opened the trust portal again, not hoping it would change this time. Just reading it the way you read something you know you'll have to repeat out loud soon, and somewhere under the pain meds and the exhaustion. A different kind of awareness settled in. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a map. I was half asleep when the door opened again. Not the quick in and out of nurses. This was slower, careful. Footsteps stopped just inside the room. Turn on the light, a woman said, calm and exact. I want to see her face. I opened my eyes. The overhead light came on softly, not the harsh setting. The woman standing at the foot of the bed wore a long gray coat, still buttoned. Her hair was pulled back neatly, the way it always was in photos. Travel lines at the edges of her eyes. Familiar? Impossible. Grandma, I said, my voice breaking before I could stop it. Helena Kingsley Roth stepped closer, setting her bag down like she planned to stay. She took in the IV, the bandages, the empty chair, the untouched flowers someone from work had sent earlier that afternoon. Hello, Audrey, she said. You look thinner than you should. I tried to sit up. She raised a hand. Don't, she said. You've done enough already. You weren't supposed to. I know, she replied. No one told me. She pulled the chair close and sat, folding her hands in her lap. No rush, no panic. I got the call about the surgery, she continued. From a doctor who assumed I already knew you'd be here alone. I swallowed. Blair said she was handling everything. Helena's eyes didn't change. Not anger, not surprise. The trust hasn't paid, she said. Not a question. I shook my head. They paused my therapy. She reached into her coat and took out her phone. How much is left? I told her. She nodded once, like she'd expected it. That account was structured for emergencies, not lifestyles. Tears pressed hard behind my eyes. But I didn't let them fall. I didn't touch it. I swear. I know, she said simply. We noticed how that sentence landed. No debate, no hesitation, just certainty. She stood and walked to the window, pulling the shade up an inch. City lights. Late evening. I flew in from Zurich this morning, she said. I didn't tell your parents. I wanted to see for myself. She turned back to me. This fund exists so you never have to prove you're sick enough to deserve care. My throat tightened. They think I'm fine. Helena returned to the chair. Her voice softened, but only slightly. That's because you taught them to. She took my hand, warm and steady. Rest tonight. I'll speak to the hospital. Then I'll speak to your family. I nodded, exhausted. Thank you for coming. She gave a small, dry smile. I didn't come. I returned. The light clicked off. The room felt different with her there. Smaller, maybe, but solid. I closed my eyes, listening to the monitor, knowing for the first time since waking up that someone in this building understood exactly what had been taken from me and wasn't going to look away. Helena didn't wait until morning. She stood by the window with her phone in hand, checking the time difference once, then tapping a name I knew by muscle memory alone. My mother's ringtone came through the speaker, cheerful and painfully familiar. Oh, Mom! Evelyn sounded surprised. Is everything okay? It depends, Helena replied. Are you sitting down? My father's voice joined the line almost immediately. What's wrong? We were just talking about Audrey. I'm sure you were, Helena said. I'm with her now. A pause followed, long enough to hear my mother inhale. "You're where Evelyn asked?" "In her hospital room." "The one she's been in for 5 days without company?" "That's not fair," my mother said quickly. "We've been letting Blair manage everything so Audrey can rest." "Then perhaps you can explain," Helena continued evenly, "why her physical therapy has been suspended." My father cleared his throat. "Hospitals do that. It's administrative. They do it when bills aren't paid," Helena replied. "The trust hasn't released funds in days." Silence. Not even background noise. "That can't be right," my mother said. Blair assured us. Helena turned the phone, angling the camera toward my chart clipped at the end of the bed. The yellow notice. The paused schedule. The balance statement pulled up on her tablet. "This is right," she said, "and it's happening now." My father spoke slower this time. Blair wouldn't risk Audrey's care. Helena's voice stayed level. "Your daughter is recovering from major surgery. Her care was risked the moment you stopped asking questions." I watched my parents' faces on the screen change, confusion first, then something closer to fear. "We trusted her," my mother said. You thought Audrey would be fine," Helena interrupted. "Because she always has been." The words hung there. We noticed how that sentence settled, not with anger, but with recognition. "I need to speak to Blair," Helena said. "Now." My mother hesitated. "She's traveling." "That won't matter." A moment later, Blair's face appeared. Perfect lighting. Calm smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Grandma," she said brightly. "This is a surprise." "You emptied the medical trust," Helena replied. "Explain." Blair laughed lightly. "That's dramatic. I managed expenses. List them." Blair's smile thinned. "Why are we doing this in front of everyone? Because this is where the consequences live," Helena said. Blair shifted. Audrey wasn't even awake. Someone had to make decisions. "Decisions," Helena repeated. "Or purchases." "It was for recovery," Blair insisted. "Wellness programs, stress management." She needed them. "I needed surgery," I said quietly. "And therapy." Blair glanced at me, irritation flashing through the mask. "You don't understand what things cost." Helena leaned closer to the phone. "You do not redefine survival to justify comfort." My father's voice cracked. "Blair, tell me you didn't." "I did what I thought was fair," Blair snapped. "Audrey always gets everyone's sympathy." That was when Helena ended the debate. "You didn't steal money," she said. "You stole time she needed to heal." The room went very still. Blair's image froze for a second, then steadied. "That's not what happened." "It is," Helena replied. "And now you will stop." She looked at my parents. "I am freezing the trust. An independent trustee will be appointed today. Audrey's care resumes immediately." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. "You can't, I can," Helena said. "And I am." She ended the call without waiting for permission. The room felt heavier afterward, like air before a storm finally breaks. Helena turned to me. "Rest," she said. "What comes next will require clarity." I lay back against the pillows, my heart still racing, my body weak, but something else inside me steadier than it had been all week. The story my family told themselves had cracked, and for the first time, it wasn't me holding it together. Blair arrived the next afternoon, not rushing, not flustered. She walked into the room like she still belonged there, sunglasses pushed into her hair, phone in hand, heels clicking softly against the tile. She stopped short when she saw Helena seated beside my bed. "Well," Blair said, forcing a smile. "This feels dramatic." Helena didn't stand. She didn't greet her. She gestured to the chair across from the bed. "Sit," she said. Blair hesitated, then dropped into the chair with a small huff. "I don't see why this needs to be a tribunal." "You emptied a fund meant for surgery and recovery," Helena replied. That creates a conversation whether you like it or not. Blair crossed her arms. I managed it. There's a difference. There was not enough left to continue physical therapy, Helena said. Explain how that is management. Blair looked at me then. Not concern. Something sharper. You always do this, she said. You make everything sound worse than it is. I kept my voice even. They paused my care. For a minute. She shot back. I was going to fix it. When? Helena asked. Blair opened her mouth, closed it, then shrugged. Soon. We noticed how the word hung there, light and careless, against everything it had cost. I didn't take it to hurt you. Blair continued. I took it because someone had to decide how it was used. And you weren't awake. You weren't appointed to decide, Helena said. Our parents trusted me. Blair replied. They know I'm capable. They know you're charming. Helena corrected. Those are not the same. Blair's composure cracked just enough to let something ugly through. She always gets protected, Blair snapped, nodding at me. Even now, everyone rushes in for her. I've spent my whole life being second. I felt my hands curl into the blanket. You were never second. You just weren't responsible. Blair laughed sharply. You think responsibility makes you better. I think it kept me alive, I said. Silence followed. Thick, unavoidable. Helena leaned forward slightly. You did not steal money, she said. You stole time. Time she needed to heal. Time she may not get back. Blair's face went pale. That's not fair. It is accurate, Helena replied. And accuracy matters now. She slid a folder onto the tray table. You will sign an acknowledgement of misuse. You will cooperate in returning every dollar through asset liquidation, and you will be removed permanently from all trusts associated with this family. Blair stared at the folder. And if I don't? Then this becomes legal, Helena said. And public. My parents' voices came faintly through the speakerphone still connected on the bedside table. My mother was crying quietly. My father hadn't spoken in minutes. Blair's hands shook as she picked up the pen. We noticed how this was the first time no one rushed to save her from the consequences. She signed, hard, angry. When she stood, she didn't look at me. She walked out without a word. The door closed softly behind her. Helena exhaled once, slow and controlled, then turned to me. Your care will resume within the hour. I nodded, my throat tight, my chest aching in a way that had nothing to do with surgery. What she took wasn't just money. It was the version of my family that pretended harm didn't count if it stayed quiet. Physical therapy resumed the next morning. A woman named Karen introduced herself, rolled a cart into the room, and spoke to me like I was capable but fragile. I appreciated that balance more than she probably knew. We'll go slow, she said, adjusting the brace around my leg. You tell me when it's too much. I nodded. I will. My parents came later that afternoon. Together. They stood just inside the doorway, unsure where to put themselves now that the room felt claimed. Mom reached for my hand, then stopped. I didn't know, she said quietly. I should have known. Dad stared at the floor for a long moment before looking up. We thought you were fine. He admitted. You always were. I wasn't. I replied. My voice stayed steady, surprising both of us. I just didn't complain. Mom's eyes filled. We never meant to. I know, I said. But intention isn't the same as impact. The words landed without drama. Just truth. Helena stood by the window, listening without interrupting. When she finally spoke, it was measured. This doesn't end with apologies, she said. It ends with change. My parents nodded. Not eager, not defensive, just tired. We noticed how no one rushed to fix the moment. They let it sit. Later, after they left, Helena helped me adjust the pillows. Her movements were efficient, familiar. I've arranged independent oversight, she said. The trust will never be managed by family again. Good, I said. I don't want that kind of closeness anymore. She gave a small smile. Boundaries are not distance, they're structure. That evening, Iris stopped by with a coffee she didn't expect me to drink yet. She set it on the table anyway. Just in case, she said. I smiled. Thanks for not looking away. She shrugged. I don't anymore. When the room finally went quiet, I pulled up my phone and changed a few things. Emergency contact, power of attorney. Who gets called first? I didn't feel angry while I did it. Just clear. Recovery hurt. Physically, emotionally. But for the first time, the pain felt honest. Whatever version of me survived this wasn't going to disappear quietly again. And that felt like progress. The day I left the hospital, there wasn't a crowd, no speeches, no flowers filling the room, just Helena waiting by the curb, her coat draped over one arm, the car idling quietly like it had all the patience in the world. I moved slower than I wanted to. My body still felt like it belonged to someone else, but it held me. That mattered. Helena opened the passenger door and waited until I was settled before closing it. She didn't ask how I felt. She already knew. As we pulled away, the hospital slipped out of view without ceremony. I didn't turn around. I updated everything, I said after a few minutes. Contacts, legal stuff. Who gets to speak for me? Helena nodded. Good. I won't be easy to reach for a while. I hope not. She replied. You've earned quiet. The drive stayed silent after that. Not awkward, just clean. Later, back in my apartment, I stood in the doorway for a long moment before going in. It looked the same. It felt different, like a place that would finally hold me instead of waiting for me to hold it together. That night, I sent one message to Iris, home. She replied with a single word, rest. I didn't message my parents, not out of anger, just because I didn't need to explain myself anymore. For a long time, being Audrey Kingsley meant being reliable, being fine, being the one who absorbed things quietly so everyone else could stay comfortable. That version of me didn't survive the surgery. What did survive was something smaller, steadier, someone who knew that strength wasn't owed to anyone. It was chosen. If you stayed with this story on Revenge Sins, you already know why moments like this linger. Some endings don't close doors, they make room.